Hello and welcome to my video about the Flowerdew Tarot. I'm developing a tarot deck at the moment, and I've just now taken a moment to stop and kind of rethink and gather my senses, but also I wanted to gather people's feelings towards this project. It's an amazingly long project to do. It started its life black and white, and all of the original pieces are in fact black and white on paper. I'd already done some paintings of the tarot, some of the cards in full colour, in acrylic, and that timescale just wasn't realistic. Literally, it would take me something like a week for each one instead of maybe 3 days for the black and white images. And then, of course, once they're in computer, I could start playing with them. So you saw them in flat colour, and now you're seeing them with a kind of textured look. I think I'm leaning myself, but I want people's opinions on the flat colour look. Personally, I probably would lean towards the textured look for myself, but it's kind of quite kind of muddled and confused looking compared with the others. I think maybe for other people, maybe over fussy. Originally, when the pictures were separate and unframed, as I did them, a lot of them looked kind of quite naked, even with the flat colour. But I think with the border around them, somehow the flat colour is enough, and it's probably the boldest. I think the black and white for me is still a little bit, it's not quite as clear as the coloured ones. The texture isn't entirely madness or entirely decorational. The texture is made up of everyday and often fairly unexciting things like walls or bits of concrete even, and yet at the same time bits of old wood or autumn leaves on the floor. In that texture and in the general ethos of this deck, whilst I've tried to be traditional, which I'll talk about a bit more probably in a minute, I've tried to add a modern and sometimes a kind of commonplace theme to it. I really wanted to break away from the idea of magic, of mysticism being something that only exists in the land of the dragons. I really wanted to bring it into reality, but I have been very traditional. The actual imagery is kind of slightly leaning away from modern tarot. It's closer to the older decks, like the Marseille deck, the Charles VI deck in the Swiss deck, and the Visconti, which have been my main kind of go-tos. When I've used tarot, I've actually used the Rider-Waite, but I've kind of used it as a kind of a threshold for my research. I feel that anything later than the Waite has been so influenced by it, and indeed the Golden Dawn kind of philosophy that it's part of. So I've very much gone for the older decks, which actually poses some questions later on, because the older decks don't have narratives on the suit cards. So the 10 of Swords is just 10 swords and the word 10 and swords, as opposed to having a narrative on it, and so on and so forth with all of the others, apart from maybe the royals and the aces. But yeah, the imagery here is very I've tried to be very traditional at the same time as combining things to really bring home that this is stuff of our world. I do that in my art. It's a theme of mine over the years, and I actually think it works. I think if anything they look slightly more magical because the hanged man is wearing a jumpsuit and has a mobile phone at his feet, not less. And more magical because the lovers are in a nightclub with one of those big 70s spinning discs above their head. On to where I'm at now. part of the job of this video is to let me gauge how interested people are in this deck. I always planned to have this kind of period in the middle where I'd maybe hype the project, and this is me trying to hype it for you, but also hype it for me. Obviously, if I do the next bit, I am at very best halfway through, and at very worst, really on my first few steps. The minor arcana's huge, and if I choose to provide narratives for all of those, I'm going to be a busy boy for a long time. I think if I get the feeling, and that will be partly based on my feedback, but also partly just based on how I feel about it after stepping away from it for a while, and if I get the feeling that it's not going to be a big thing, I'm probably going to do the royals and the aces, and then just do the other suits quite simply, like game cards. And in fairness, that is what was there before Rider-Waite, basically. But if I get a lot of excitement, I might take on the slightly more challenging approach where each one's got a narrative. I'm also interested in what people think about maybe t-shirts with these designs on. Obviously I'm biased, but I think it is pretty. At least some of it is. And I wonder whether people would like t-shirts of it. If I can generate some form of revenue from this project, that's going to make its completion far more likely. And I'd also wondered about a colouring in book. The black and white images kind of lend to that sort of thing, an adult colouring in book, and it means you've got 22 colouring in pages, one for each of the minor arcana. Maybe something to kind of acquaint yourself with the tarot on a visual basis. Yeah, generally, do you want it? Do you like it? I'd love it if you shared this video. I'd love it if you link to it, stuff like that. And I'd really love comments. I really need feedback at the moment to figure out what I'm going to do next. Other than that, generally, if you've made it this far, that's a lot of my talking. Thank you for your time, and I hope you've enjoyed this. And the easiest way for me to make this video was not to muck around in video editing software, but to use game software to make a kind of an interactive toy. After you've finished this video, I'm going to include a link underneath that will give you access to it. I hope my little tarot toy is fun. It's still recording, so I could sing a little song here. La 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 la. Nah, I don't think I will.